This is a project that is really like my life's work. My life's experiences have given me insight into something that I now feel like I have to share with the world, right? So, welcome to Airflow. The world is full of problems. Humans have developed the critical thinking and the ability to process and formulate information in a way that is effective at resolving problems, right? But there's a difference between resolving problems and solving them. Unfortunately, in this world, in this country especially, we have become very good at resolving problems and they remain unsolved. Right? Where do you see this, right? You see this in every facet of life, right? In medicine, the most obvious and easy one to point to, right? Instead of giving you a cure, they give you medication to relieve the symptoms. If you have certain problems, ailments, they will overlook them, especially if they're not life-threatening. And if they do cause you some type of issue, instead of them figuring out the best way to remove the problem from your physical, they will figure out a way to relieve the problem so that you don't feel it anymore. And this is the basis of how we handle things in humanity. Whenever there's a problem that arises, instead of trying to figure out a solution, we run to the first resolution that seems like it makes sense. The world has progressed and evolved because of this, but there's still unresolved issues. There's still a lot of unresolved matters that through all the problem solving, the resolving, through all the evolution, still have not been addressed. When you think about the world's biggest problem, or the one that most people are attacking and trying to come up with a resolution for, it's human happiness, right? How do we quantify happiness? And then how do we understand what makes someone unhappy and give them a resolution for how to become happy? Right? And this is where psychology comes into play. Psychology, for the most part, is the study of happiness and the investigation of unhappiness and the results of behaviors that can lead to happiness or unhappiness. And that's really the underlying topic and the underlying issue. Because just like in all other industries and all other realms of understanding, we base everything that we know or everything that we determine on the behaviors of the specimen or the individual, right? And psychology is no different. Just like all other facets of understanding, the behavior of the individual is the thing that we analyze and the thing that we study and the thing that we make our findings and our determinations on, right? But if we're such good problem solvers and we have studied the behaviors of people endlessly, then how come there's no definitive resolution or definitive solution for the problems that we face? Somehow the problems continue to revolve and revolve and revolve and revolve, and new products and new resolutions and new answers and new theories just keep following and popping up with them. And you could call this evolution, but I'm in the train of thought that it's more voluntary than that. The ignorance or the disconnect. I don't know that it's just, the matter of how things evolve. My theory is that for the basis of us studying and judging and determining our information on behaviors, which can be skewed, behaviors can be skewed, and oftentimes people will run to performing the behavior that they think will save them, but there's still no result, or the results don't pan out. If everybody can tell you about what behavior to choose and what behaviors to engage in, and those things are equally determining factors for the result of what happens to you, this is everybody's concept, right? If you change this behavior, then the outcome will change and everything will be different, right? If you change that behavior, then the outcome will change, everything will be different. Just buy this product from me and I'll help you do that. Changing the behavior is only the surface of the issue, though. Most studies, most sciences, most people idolize, fantasize, and obsess about behaviors, right? But behaviors can be skewed and manipulated, right? My theory is that the true indicator and the true factor for alignment or misalignment is not one's behavior. It is one's intention, one's true intentions. Now, the problem with trying to study true intentions is that you can't read them. Only the person knows their true intentions, right? And you can only read the behaviors, right? So that's where we have taken a turn into coveting and basing everything we know off of behaviors, right? But behaviors don't determine intentions, and as we can see, behaviors don't determine results to a T. There's a huge discrepancy between behaviors and the result that you expect to get from them. Behavior does not equal result, but intention does equal result. For the fact that we aren't able to study other people's intentions, we've decided to disregard them, right? But it is 2026. And even without studying another person's intentions to gain knowledge for ourselves, somebody can study their own intentions and gain knowledge for themselves, right? Now, if we desire the result for the person to align with God, then us understanding what their intentions are is irrelevant. Them understanding what their intentions are is the key. So, omnitexture is the study of human intentions and its effect on matter and on life and on happiness, right? And airflow is the first brainchild of this. The study or the product that pushes people to examine their own personal intentions and to realign those things with God, right? For their healing or for their realignment, for their spiritual completeness or fortification or whatever part of their journey they're on. So, when you talk about alignment, you got to think about intentions. Do not think about behaviors. And people are going to try to get up there and tell you to align yourself, align your behaviors. And every time you hear somebody say alignment, pretty much they're talking about changing the way you behave, changing the way you act, right? So the problem with that is, if you are a bank robber, right? And you go to some professionals who say you need to stop robbing banks. It's just not going to work for you, right? Now, you wake up the next day and change the behavior, right? And when you walk past the bank, you don't pull your gun out and rob it. But internally, you still want to. You still feel like you should. You still really have a craving, and you have to resist it to change the behavior, right? Now, that's fine when you walk past the bank 10 times. It's fine when you walk past the bank 100 times. It's fine when you walk past the bank 1,000 times. But if you walk past the bank in a different city, and you walk past the bank and you look and there's a different circumstances and there's nobody there, if you walk past the bank and you look and you feel like you can get away with it, you might not be able to resist that urge every single time, right? So you have to change the urge, right? Change the intentions. And since people can't force other people to change their intentions, they don't invest in it, right? But people need the structure and people need a product to help them look at their intentions and adjust them if need be, because the results are based on the intentions, not the behaviors. So, and that's where I stand in my intersection of understanding. I'm sure people have discovered this and people have thought about this and people have probably stated it and even brought it forth. But in the world of psychology, spirituality is not so acknowledged, right? Psychology is a form of science. And, science, though they will acknowledge the need for someone to have greater meaning, will not specifically or exclusively call it the need for having God, right? People have a need for having God, right? So, unfortunately, psychology can't cross that line, right? And then you have spirituality, right? And then spirituality, though is based in spiritual reference, it's not devoted to it, right? Even in spirituality, there is some idolization of the flesh. There's some idolization of science and what they've been able to determine. And there is some obedience and devotion to the facts and, the information of the scientists and the information of medicine. Those things are actual, factual, relevant, but they are not the full context. With behaviors, you can follow someone else's behavior to a T. That does not mean you're going to get the same result. And when it comes to spirituality, you can see science and see human manufactured knowledge, right? And you can take advantage of that. You can use it. But what are you actually devoted to? Do you believe that God is in control of you and your fate and your health and your safety, your provision, your salvation? Or do you believe that science and money and statistics and facts and the information is what is going to save you, right? And this is the basis of what airflow is. This is the basis of what alignment is, right? Spirituality and psychology exist in two different planes and they're disconnected, right? For that reason, none of the answers that either one of them provide is complete or transformational. It's always mysterious and aloof. The reason, in my opinion, and I intend to prove this through my projects and, the alignment platforms that I'm developing, right? I intend to prove that not only are psychology and spirituality connected, but they are incomplete without each other. This is the science of how psychology and spirituality complete the human experience and how they have to be merged and approached not as competitively or as opponents, but as an infusion, right? So that's what this is all about, right? And my experience in life has given me a lot of insight for where that balance and that ratio is, right? So you'll hear more about my story, and I'm sure I'll be telling it, and other people be telling it, and there's gonna be YouTube videos, movies, whatever coming out about the different circumstances that life has presented me. But one thing is for sure is that being pushed to the extremes of life has made me understand what's true and untrue about it. Alignment is really the main factor here, right? And I never had the vocabulary for this for the last 15 years while I was um, living and experiencing the conflict that we all face with alignment, right? Most people aren't sensitive enough to isolate where they're misaligned or aligned in life. And you can be aligned and misaligned within an instant, and you can be aligned or misaligned in anything in life, any category, right? I never had the vocabulary for this. I never understood what word it was that was needed to describe this thing that I was studying. It was like a human case study. You know, just the last 15 years of just examining myself and examining others to formulate a complete understanding of the life that is so fragile that we all share and experience, right? One that can so easily be taken for granted, right? So for the last 15 years, literally for the last 15 years, I've subconsciously and in the background obsessed about this. You know what I'm saying? I've lived a full life. I've had careers. I've done all type of things. I've raised 3 kids. One of them is grown now. I've had all type of homes and cars, and I've been to all different places. And you know, my family has experienced tons of hardships and tons of current events that we've all had to face. And I was there for all of it. But in the back of my mind, I was always analyzing and judging this thing, you know, the congruence. How is somebody really who they say they are? Is somebody really who they want to be? Is somebody really who they think they are, right? Is somebody really doing the things that they wish they would do, or doing the things that they're capable of, or are they selling themselves short? I went through this a million times. My own psychology has forced me to evaluate this within myself, right? So in evaluating and learning about this within myself, I've evaluated and learned about this with the people that are close to me, with the people I've worked with, my family members, my kids. It's something that is universal, right? And I'm here to clarify it for you as best I can, right? And I didn't know that this was something that I had to do. I didn't know that this was something that I was called to do until it all broke through to me. How did that happen? You know, this was just my problem, you know what I'm saying, for the longest. People did not care. They didn't hear it. They didn't understand it. They can feel it. They can feel it. But because they can't formulate it and because they can't make it make sense, oftentimes they disregard it, right? And then I'm left further investigating it for myself. You know what I'm saying? So this was always a me thing until recently when my daughter was getting ready to go to college and I'm watching her and I'm watching the influences and I'm watching the changes and I'm seeing that she is losing congruence. She's trying to be what these people need and she's trying to do what is required over here. And before all of those things were priorities to her, she was really centered and really focused and she was really working and she was really the person who she was, right? And so watching the early influences come into her life and watching the effect it had was a little bit triggering to me. You know what I'm saying? And then I started to imagine, you know, all of the other she's getting ready to go to school and she's getting ready to, and we're not going to be there to speak for God or speak on our side. There's going to be a bunch of people around her that's trying to tell her this is true and this is right and this is how it goes. And it really affected me being, fearful, of all honesty. And, you know, I try not to let myself dwell in fear. But this was something that really scared me. For the last 15 years, I've watched people derail themselves for following the wrong leaders and for doing the wrong things and settling and for trying to cut corners. And so many people will jump out there and tell you, man, don't worry about it, just do this. Yeah, PPP, yeah, don't worry about that. We scamming now, don't worry about this. And if you're not mentally aware and mentally strong enough to understand what's true and what's true for you and what you are, what you do, it's so easy to be swayed. This is not a teenager problem. This is a human problem. At 20, at 30, at 40, at 50, at 60, there are systems and institutions, leaders set up there to tell you where you are, tell you who you are, tell you what's wrong with you, and point you in the right direction, right? And they have very little care for if it actually works for you or not. They have self-glorified themselves enough into believing that whatever they did that worked for them is going to work for you, or you did something wrong, right? Now, I'm not a failure, you know what I'm saying? I don't have any problem with doing what others have done to find my way to success, but there's a difference between knowing that you need to do what somebody else has done to find your way to success and doing what somebody else is doing because you feel like that's the only way to success, right? There's no wrong answers. There's no one path. There's no only way except for God's way, right? We all know that. But alignment and misalignment will have you forgetting that, right? Have you believing and devoting yourself to other people and idols and other situations, systems, institutions that you feel like will save you or you feel like will provide for you, right? When you find your place, it will fuel you, it will nurture you, it will provide and protect for you because God has ordered it that way, right? But if you go to a place because somebody told you to go there, if you go to a place because it's the easiest resolution, if you go to a place because it seems simpler, less friction, less opposition, then you're likely going to the wrong place, right? And that's what all of this is about. So what once was a problem for me exclusively, what once was my problem, became something that I recognized would be a problem for my children, just like it's a problem for the rest of the world. So that's when I embarked on my project, right? That's when everything started to fall into place. You know, when I started to look at it like, okay, I'm a parent, let me get ahead of this, let me do something to fortify my daughter's identity, to fortify her understanding of truth, and to fortify her ability to be resilient and to be aligned when facing storms and running into conflicts or having issues that would likely derail her or give her some type of unhappiness, right? Because psychology says that that's what the true goal of life is, right? Oh, so often we are in pursuit of something that we think is going to make us happy, and we endure months and years of unhappiness to get it, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with working hard, but it is something wrong with being out of place, being out of line, being out of alignment. There's something wrong with being something that you're not called to be. There's something wrong with living outside of your purpose, right? And I'm going to prove it, right? So the word alignment is right now very vaguely and openly used by everyone, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define it. Okay, so alignment, right? when the mind, body, the soul, and the creator are in congruence, right? See, a lot of times people will discuss alignment with you and they will tell you that your mind, body, and soul have to be aligned, right? And they'll tell you, give you advice, figure out what it is you want to be. Figure out what it is that makes you feel good and align yourself with that, right? So, again, that is the quickest resolution to a problem that needs a solution. If you are experiencing stress at home, stress at work, discomfort in your identity, discomfort in your assignment, discomfort in your role, if you're feeling like a lack of purpose, if you're feeling disappointed or disrupted in peace, right? Oftentimes you're out of alignment, right? And the first thing somebody's going to tell you to do is figure out what it is that, you want to align yourself with. Whatever makes you feel good, align yourself with that. But if you're feeling this real discomfort, this real dis-ease, right? You're not comfortable, you're not happy, you're not feeling good, you're not feeling purpose, you're not feeling congruent, and then you let yourself brainstorm and try to figure out something that you like and something that makes you feel better, and then you go and try to align yourself to that. The problem there is that whatever you've aligned yourself to is temporary. It's not eternal. It's temporary. If you choose something for yourself, if you choose something that you think is right, you're going to realize that it's temporary, right? You're gonna realize that it's temporary. You will be able to relieve yourself for a limited time, but when your time runs up, when you no longer enjoy that thing, when it's gone or destroyed or it's taken away, you're going to be left back out in the wilderness, back out in misalignment, right? So there's only one way that we can actually define what real alignment is. Alignment that is not just relief or not just a resolution, but a solution, which is the synonym for alignment, right? So if we're going to define alignment, it's got to be absolute and it's got to be complete. It cannot be resolvatory, right? It has to solve problems, right? So my definition, the official definition of alignment is when your mind, your body, and your soul are congruent with the Creator, right? So how do we establish congruency with our Creator, right? A lot of people look at God as if he's some type of genie, right? A lot of people look at God as if they are the one and it's God's job to make sure they get to where they're going, right? And so many of us take it for granted, you know what I'm saying? The real covering that God gives us all, daily, moment to moment, per second, right? Some people take it for granted how much of a glorious position it is to be a servant of God, right? Most people are trying to make God serve them, right? And that is a misalignment that can never be restored. The only way you can align yourself is if you let God be who God is and you be who you are. So let's look at this. Okay. I had to draw a diagram because people be having this all backwards, right? So look. Before all else, before everything else, above all else is God, right? God is at the top. God's plan is eternal. God's plan is to take care of the earth and everybody in it all at the same time, and he does it so well, right? And then way down here, that's you as an individual and your plans, right? Most people try to make their diagram look like this.
Look at this. Most people think you, them, God.
Most people live from the frame of mind that they are the center of the world or on top of it. And that what they want matters more than what the world needs. That what they want is going to be the most important thing on the spectrum. They think that what they want is more of a priority to God than the earth itself, right? So this is where alignment comes into play. If your ratio looks like this, you will always be battling. You will always be falling short, coming up with less, getting the short end of the stick, being disappointed, being upset, being depressed, being distorted. You will always be wrong and in pain and in discomfort and misaligned if you place yourself at the top. Now, anybody in psychology will tell you this. You have to make yourself part of something greater than yourself. And so they'll suggest, go be a part of an institution or a fraternity, go be a part of a club or some type of thing where you can be a part of a group and you can do activities that engage you and your individuality into something bigger than yourself, right? And that is just fine. But if you put all of your alignment into something else, now your ratio looks like this. All right. So let's say you take that advice and you go align yourself with something that is not eternal, something that is bigger than you, but something that is not eternal, right? Now your diagram looks like this. Now the institution to you, in your world, the institution is sitting on top of everything, right? Then you, right? Then the rest of the world, and then finally you filter your thoughts and your obedience down to God. Institution coming first, right? For all of you who go to work every day and you put your Christianhood to the side and you stop being obedient to God and you compromise and let yourself do all these things that are not appropriate or not holy, you have placed the institution above you, the earth, and God himself. Regardless of what institution you serve, who you are, where you are on the planet, God should be the top of the food chain. And as soon as you let that slip, as soon as you forget that, as soon as you let yourself drift from that, all of a sudden, here comes the psychological and spiritual problems. For psychological and spiritual happiness, this is how you need to look at life. And so what does that look like in literal terms? What does that look like in literal, I can wake up and do this conversation, right? Because if you present this to most people, they're going to say, there's no way. But no, there's no way. I got to act like I matter the most, because who knows what'll happen if I don't act like I matter, then nobody else will. No, I got to worry about everybody else, right? Because if they don't like me, nobody else will, right? If they don't take care of me, nobody else will, right? Those two thought processes being at the top and the forefront of your mind will lead you to spiritual and psychological disease, right? God is the first thing and the only thing that you need to idolize. And regardless of who you serve on earth, and regardless of who you serve, regardless of how you serve yourself, you need to serve God first and primarily, right? So discussing how that looks in real life, right? We're talking about being obedient, right? Obedience is going to be the key to you being able to look at life where God is at the top, right? What is obedience? Let's look at the parent-child relationship, right? And discuss obedience in that sense. That's an easy way to correlate it. For our father is our parent, and the relationship is very similar, right? So as a parent, if you ask your child to pick up their shoes and put them away neatly in the closet, obedience would be for them to hear the command, get up and do it, right? But as we're familiar with in most human parent relationships, oftentimes the child will say a rebuttal. They'll say, I don't want to, right? I'm too tired, right? They'll say, it's not fair, right? They'll say, why do I have to, right? In some cases, you'll have extreme disobedience, right? A child will say, yeah, I did it already. They'll lie, right? Or a child will throw a temper tantrum and have a fit because they don't want to be obedient, right? It's very, very similar to how adults and humans behave with their father, right? Oftentimes, we are compelled to do something, right? But instead of doing it, we will come up with an excuse. We'll rationalize it, right? We'll say it's not fair. We'll justify why we shouldn't have to do something, right? It only makes it worse when you can avoid it or be disobedient without consequence. What happens to your child when they're disobedient without consequence? When they don't have enough boundaries to realize that what they're doing is bad for them and what they're doing is going to lead them down a road to something that they shouldn't be experiencing. As the parent with infinite and not infinite, as the parent with much more knowledge, much more wisdom than the child, your advice is your directions, your commands are priceless, especially when you are aligned and obedient and subservient to God yourself, right? Now you as a parent, you are fostering a child that will be obedient not only to you, but to God, right? You know that you have to give the child boundaries. You know that you have to establish rules and a system of discipline. You know that you have to establish a way of punishing the child for disobedience, right? God has done the same thing for all of us, right? The only thing is our boundaries and our punishments are not absolute in the flesh. They're only absolute in the spirit, right? So the boundaries God placed on you, they're not a jail cell. You can go do whatever you want to do, and you don't have to look at the boundaries or be obedient. You can do whatever you want to do, but when you're running around and you're having mental issues, mental breakdowns, when you're running around and you're suffering spiritually, emotionally, and you cannot figure out why, I'm telling you, you have to point the finger back to the fact that there are boundaries and rules to this. and that there are consequences, though the structure may not be as rigid as a human parent teaching a human child at home, where I can close the door or take the iPad or do something to create a boundary and a punishment, right? God doesn't have it set up that way. Not in the flesh, it's only in the spirit, right? So as we examine our relationship with our children, be mindful of your own childhood and your relationship with your father. Are you being obedient, or are you coming up with excuses, coming up with rationalizations, coming up with all type of stuff and reasons why you don't have to listen, right? Now, nobody's perfect. And I don't want to encourage the thought that, or that if you're not perfect, you're falling short, or that if you're flawed, you are too dirty, you are too unwelcome to be here in the presence of God or in the presence. This is not true. You come as you are, right? And your obedience to God, what God has asked from you, what God expects from you, what God is saying to you, is nothing that anybody else has been told before. It's nothing that anybody else can lead you through. They have never walked the path that God has made for you. So I'm going to continue to educate people on this matter, right? Alignment. And I'm going to continue the Airflow project, right? Because one of the ways that you can combat drift or distortion is through journaling, right? So many people have abandoned this art form, right? It's not just about writing words. It's about letting your subconscious speak. It's about letting your soul have its say, right? So, of course, today people text, people are not big on writing full sentences or doing any creative writings or anything like that. And so for that reason, they have migrated from not only the resolution of journaling, the relief of it, but also the solution of journaling, right? Because journaling solves a problem that we face every day, and that is pace. That is distortion, right? If you set out on a 20-year journey, right, and you have a map, when you start the journey, you open the map, you look at it, right? But then you close the map and you just walk for 5 years. Are you going to be on course with where the map was leading you? The thing is, you can't feel your way through life without the map, right? You gotta always keep looking at the map and keep recalibrating to where you're supposed to go. See where you are and see where you're supposed to go. Because if you put the map away for 5 years and just start walking, you're gonna end up somewhere you never will recognize, and you're definitely not supposed to be there, right? So journaling gives you a chance to look deep inside and check the map again, right? So the Airflow system is a faith-based tech company whose mission is to reinvigorate the practice of journaling amongst human society, not just for the hobby of it, but for the resolution and solution of it, right? We want to turn people toward their inner truth, right? Because without that direct, without the direct connection from God, without the direct message from God being heard and relayed, you're destined to run into psychological and spiritual misalignments and discomforts, right? So the Airflow system is built to help people journal, right? And help people journal in a way that causes alignment, right? So there's a system to it, right? I could just give people journaling prompts and pages, but it's a lot more complex than that, because through my own spiritual journey, through my own healing from my extreme situations in life, right? I've learned that you have to do this in a linear fashion, right? So the Airflow journey, which is individualized per pain point, right? If you have a specific pain point, if you're facing addiction, or if you're facing marriage problems, or if you're facing a physical disability, or if you're facing childhood and parenting issues, then there's a airflow pathway for each of those things. And the airflow framework creates a pathway where you start where you are. You come as you are. You start in the bottom. You start in the despair. You start in the discomfort. You start in the misalignment. And you journal day after day after day after day after day through different sets of modules, right? So each day has a structure where you have a reflection prompt and you think about it, you meditate on it, you write your response, right? Then there's an action step to further fortify this new concept or the reminder of what's inside, right? So then you take your action. Then you're provided with a scripture and a prayer to take along with you through the day. Airflow doctrine requires users to wield that scripture and wield that prayer all throughout the day. Focus on the reflection of the day, right? And make the adjustment. At least just try it one time, see what happens, make the adjustment. Your life is long. You can try things, right? So through the daily structure, a person will start to have a repetitive thought process and a repetitive angle for thinking, right? They'll start to acquire scriptures to fortify them that they can hold on to, and they'll start to repeat them, giving them not only a repetition of the scripture, but a repetition of the act of reciting scriptures, right? And then they have a prayer that they can wield throughout the day when they're feeling tempted or misaligned, when they feel themselves beginning to distort or become uncomfortable. The prayer is there. So the structure daily has its own benefits to it. And when repeated daily, the repetition develops muscle memory, spiritual memory, psychological memory that the individual, the user, can then begin to gain momentum with and turn in that direction, right? So as the person completes the daily structure, each day, each 7 days is a module, right? Each 7 days of journaling will be focused on one topic, and it'll carry you through the beginning of the topic through the end of it in a linear fashion, right? So you start on day 1, you move through day 7, you complete module 1. Then you start on day 8, you move through day 15, and you complete module 2. Module 1 is one topic, module 2 is the second topic, right? Most of the Airflow products are 10 weeks or 10 modules, right? But we also have custom. I can develop them and create them to suit your need explicitly, right? So you get the structure in the day-to-day and the repetition, and it moves in a linear fashion from the beginning of the module to the end, and then you move through the modules, module by module, from the first module to the 10th, right? The framework of Airflow is based on the science of alignment that I'm creating, right? The science behind it is called omnitexture. We'll get into that later, right? I'm developing it, and Airflow is the first brainchild of this science, right? Airflow uses its copywritten framework to carry people through repetitive structure every single day, day to day, give them the tools and the actions they need to break their chains, break their cycles, and gain confidence in taking new angles and changing direction in the way they operate, right? And then you move from module 1, which is, the depths of your misalignment, to module 10, which is the surface and the entryway into a new life, a new direction, right? So the framework is layered. It's day-to-day structure, it's module-to-module structure, and then it's entire module series structure. And we turn the module series into workbooks. Workbooks can be downloaded digitally, or they can be purchased hard copy, right? So the workbooks, the modules, every airflow product in the ecosystem is AI integrated, right? So you can go on now, download Vision Walk GPT, which is Airflow's primary journaling assistant, right? So that's the gist of it. Airflow is a faith-based tech company with the mission of reinvigorating journaling as a practice, not only for the hobby of it or the expression of it, but for the resolution and the solution of it, right? So I'm going to continue to do more YouTube videos and more lessons on alignment. Check out the YouTube, check out the social media. And if you're in any type of situation where you feel like you're misaligned, or you feel like you need help regaining yourself or getting back in alignment with God, check out the Airflow system. Check out the workbooks. If you are in need of one and you can't afford to purchase one, reach out to me and I'll get one to you. I'll get one to you somehow. But the world is in desperate need of a spiritual healing, a spiritual revolution, right? So many of us have drifted so far from God that we can't even tell what's real anymore or what's true anymore, right? With the technology, with AI, with the greed, with the economy, the market, with the war, with politics, so many things, so many different ways to pull you in different directions and keep you off balance, keep you ungrounded, right? So Airflow, Airflow's mission is to work against that, to work towards a solution, not just a resolution. And with Omnitecture and the other creations that I'm coming with behind it, I would love to, get some other people involved. If you have any criticisms, if you have any questions, hit me up, reach out, comment. I have no shame, I have no fear, so do as you wish. And if there's anybody in the world of psychology who would like to challenge me or, correct me if they can, I'd love to hear it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not afraid of being wrong. And if there's anybody in the world of spirituality that would like to contest or object to what I'm saying, I would love to hear it. So I'm going to keep pumping. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep doing my thing from where I am. And, I'm a real estate agent. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a small business. And I'm doing this on the side. I have 3 daughters. I have a wife. So, I'm not an influencer by any means. But I do feel like it's my job to step up and say this. And if anybody feels compelled to challenge it, I'm all game. So this is Airflow. This is an intro. And I hope that you get an understanding of alignment as it's defined in Airflow. And I hope that you get an understanding of how psychology and spirituality are 2 sides of the same coin, right? And I hope that you learn something that will be insightful for you moving forward. I'm going to keep doing my thing. Come back, check it out. Like, subscribe, whatever people do. And I'm going to tap back in soon. So, peace.